Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. As we read through Deuteronomy, it should be notable that it feels like it's a storytelling. It feels like, you're pulling up a chair around the campfire and somebody is regaling you with all of the things that have happened so far in their lives. Moses is recounting stories, and it's important to note that a lot of the purpose of a priest or a leader would be to consistently remind people of their stories, to be the reteller, because it's predominantly an oral culture. And when we have an oral culture, we don't have books full of bookcases and memes that show up on our electronic devices and posters that are in front of us to remind us of important things. So we've been reading through Deuteronomy, and half of it is this retelling, which is a model for continuing to retell when Moses is gone. And then in a few places, it is an exhortation to write the words on your forehead, on your hand, on your doorpost, on your gates. And this is, again, to reiterate that these stories need to be retold. They need to be in front of you. They need to be daily. And today we're jumping into Psalms 11 through 14, and David is really good at doing this. We see the Psalms as songs a lot, and they are songs of praise in many ways, but they are also ways that an oral culture would be sharing stories and sharing important themes and important things about God that must be remembered. And so David is here giving us another entry of the important things about God and these principles. The Lord is righteous. He is letting us know that what we choose to decide about God and what we decide to do in our lives matters. And the thing that stands out here for me, he laments that we're losing godly and faithful men, and that what's left are men who spread lies and flatter themselves. And that has never really changed. David is struggling with watching people that are in power and many times in power over him and able to affect his life that aren't godly people and that are putting themselves first. The thing that stood out to me here was in Psalm 14, and he talks about the fool has said in his heart, which I think is such a really interesting bit of imagery, that this is where we tell ourselves truths, and this is where we tell ourselves what we most intimately want to believe, and sometimes those aren't truths. So the fool has said in his heart, privately to himself, there is no God, because this fool has been able to commit atrocities, to do things that are wildly against what the traditional knowledge and wisdom is of the day. And because they didn't have something come and strike them down immediately, then they're taking that as proof that God doesn't exist. And out of that proof, then, they're standing on that false rock and continuing to act and go deeper and deeper. And David, at the end, says, don't they know, as they eat up my people, that judgment hangs over their head? Don't they know the danger that they're in? And I think going back to the fool in his heart, I think that is where we meet truth, no matter what. I think we have that moment of, this isn't quite right, because our flesh is made up of earth. Our flesh we have to push our flesh to go against what the design is. And so we know in our heart when we put forth an idea that isn't right. It's that little misgiving. And the fool takes evidence. Very, very rarely does God, even in the Bible, just strike someone down in the streets because they have gone against him. Usually it's around touching the Ark of the Covenant that people are struck down. We've seen it a couple times where fire races out of the tent of meeting. But for the most part, people are able to make this decision and carry on in their life. And sort of, I think about Marley in A Christmas Carol, where he unknowingly forged these chains and was carrying around all these lockboxes, and he didn't realize until after death what they looked like. But I relate this passage to what's happening with people as they eat the things that we're choosing, not for fuel. Our food isn't fuel. Our food is building blocks. When people choose things to make their body up with, the body that is supposed to be nature, the body that is supposed to be creation, when we choose to make up our body with something that isn't creation, we have a misgiving. And I think a lot of us, both believers and non-believers, have that moment where we think, this isn't actually maybe the best thing for me to do. But in our time, we have governmental agencies like the FDA, and the fool thinks, well, it wouldn't be on the shelf if it was dangerous, because the oversight agencies in which I place my daily faith have said that it is safe and good for me. So in other words, the fool is looking to man-made organizations that is where they put their faith for what is good and right and what is healthful. And so far, as we've been reading all of the commandments that we're supposed to follow to be able to be fertile and well and healthy in the land, those are coming straight from God. We're looking for goodness there, not from an organization. Moses didn't make up a panel that everybody could just trust and listen to them about what is to be eaten every day. And in fact, as the people came together in Israel and decided what they wanted to eat, so far in the Bible, it has not gone well. So I think a lot about how many people are telling themselves that it is okay. My misgiving is here because this doesn't feel right in the creation of my cells and my tissues, but I'm going to go with my own source of goodness and information. I'm going to look at the fact that when I eat this Twinkie in the grocery aisle, I didn't drop dead. So it must be okay. And therefore, there is no God. There is no God over what I do day in, day out, over what is in my health. I will be my own God. I will choose my own God over what I should do. And that's where people put the FDA in. I tend to feel a little bit like David here. I stand outside of that and watch the first decision that then allows that person to determine, well, I didn't die immediately. And that's what the FDA said. It was totally fine. And they're right. And so then on that foundation, they continue their actions. And I feel a little bit like David most days, standing apart, watching people do this and think, don't they know? As they eat up their bodies, as they destroy their bodies, that judgment hangs above their head, they're in danger. We must turn to God for what's good. We must turn to God for his instructions on how to care for our bodies, because if we don't, we are, in essence, claiming there is no God. Either he's here and his instructions are for our good and for our health and for our fertility and for our planet and our earth, or we don't. It's one or the other. I pray that God is blessing you today and that this is something that you wrestle with. I think we're meant to wrestle with this in this time. I have wrestled on and off with this, and I would treasure hearing your feedback as you wrestle. If you want somebody to discuss with, reach out, get onto my Facebook page or Instagram, or just reach out through the podcast world. This is important. I am very, very strongly convicted that this is important right now. And I pray that you consider it. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.